Throughout the early Scarlet and Violet sets, Lugia Archeops was a dominant force in the metagame, but in the Paradox Rift meta, it's crashed well outside of the top 10 decks and is performing worse than the likes of Clorf Electrode. So why is it that despite losing Professor Burnett, a crucial consistency supporter for the deck due to rotation, that Lugia's managed to win a 3,000 player Japanese tournament in the brand new format, and how has it clawed its way back to the top of the metagame? It looks as though one key inclusion from Temporal Forces has completely changed the fates of Lugia and brought it back to the top tables. The entire build round of the Lugia archetype ties to the Summoning Star ability on your Lugia V-Star, allowing us to pull these normally Stage 2 Pokemon in Archeops immediately into play, giving us access to immediate energy acceleration for special energy. In its own right, Lugia can deal a decent amount of damage with a Tempest Dive option, which can get through some basic EXs as well as a number of basic V Pokemon. But with the rotation of all the single strike partners which used to accompany Lugia, the archetype's missing that crucial high damage output. Enter Cinccino with its special roll attack, dealing 70 times the number of special energy attached to this Pokemon. This special roll attack is extremely dangerous. With a turn attachment, in addition to 2 primal turbos, we can burst 350 damage onto the field in one turn. And it's all coming from a single prize Pokemon that is often going to have gift energy attached to it, meaning that we're really ramping up the prize race aggressively, and your opponent can very rarely ignore this one prize option. Even the basic is helpful here. The Minccino has a Call for Family attack, which also helps out in the opening stages. For what is a fairly fragile deck with consistency, it's a nice fallback to have within the list. Looking at the deck list specifically then, we are playing a thick line of the Lugia V-Star, of course. We have to play the 4 copies of Archeops. We have a Jacq supporter, which can allow us to search out 2 evolutions. This can really help get, firstly, Archeops into hand, so we can hopefully Ultra Ball them away as kind of the main combo that we have going on here, but also you can do a sort of mix and match situation. If you've already got an Archeops in the discard pile, you can grab an Archeops and a Lugia, or also grab a Cinccino, which can of course give us more access to it throughout the mid-game as one of our crucial attackers. We do have a really thick line of this Cinccino because most of our ball search is dedicated towards the Lugia and Archeops side of the deck, because that's kind of the first step for us. So we naturally want to have high counts of the Cinccino to draw into them, but also ideally we get maybe 2 of these up in the majority of games to really give ourselves a great favourable prize trade. Even though there's only 2 copies of Professor's Research as a discard supporter, we are also playing 2 copies of the Serena in here, which also provides a little bit of discard synergy in the deck, as well as some additional gust in the list alongside Boss's Orders. Gift Energy is a massive card to help protect us around Iono throughout the entire game. Jet Energy is fantastic for switching between our Pokemon as and when required, and also is a big reason why this deck has such a good time into the Snorlax controlling archetype, as well as Great Tusk, because we can circumvent their constant trapping strategy very easily with the list. We also gain the new Mist Energy from this expansion, which allows us to protect us from effects of attacks, giving us a much better time into the Roaring Moon matchup, and also being frustrating for Giratina players, especially because we also play a copy of V-Guard in the list. We can make one very tanky Lugia that can grant us a ton of value in that matchup. At the same time, we're also throwing a Snorlax into the deck list. There is the Therapeutic Energy here, so we don't have to worry about the coin flips from Thumping Snore. It's a much chunkier single prize option that we'll look to use against Lost Box in a number of situations. The A-Spec of the deck is Master Ball. Even though this isn't the most powerful A-Spec in a vacuum, the overall strategy of Lugia is so strong if you get to turn 2 Summoning Star that any additional percentage towards that goal is going to give this deck the highest win percentage, so it is preferred over the other powerful A-Specs in the game right now. Moving on to the Trainer Hill data, it's looking pretty spicy for Lugia actually. A bit of a dodge and weave deck with some very favourables and some quite unfavourable matchups. Once again, I do note that this has only been the first week of online tournament results, so take everything with a grain of salt right now, but it does look as though Lugia has a number of favourable matchups. I think one crucial thing here is that you're good into both the Great Tusk and the Snorlax archetypes, which is kind of one of the big boasts for Lugia, because Snorlax and Great Tusk actually try and prey on some of the other top tier contenders in format, so being in your own right a pretty high tier contender that has a good time into control is a really nice bonus to have. You're also looking pretty good into the Arceus Giratina. Again, that V-Guard energy comes in clutch here, and we have decent damage output with the Tempest Dive as long as we're not reducing our damage output with Double Turbo onto their basic V Pokemon. We're also pretty solid into the Ancient box, where we have a number of single prize Pokemon, some tanky 2 prizes, and have Collapsed Stadium that can sometimes undo some damage that your opponent has set up on you. With Charizard's popularity, I think a number of people will immediately look towards the Lugia Archeops archetype because you do have a decent time here. Again, it all boils down to that Cinccino, which can deal such a huge amount of damage on a single single prizer which can't be ignored. And as we know, Charizard likes to make those comebacks with Iono, so having Gift Energy at your disposal and just onboard acceleration, it means that your opponent really can't disrupt too much of your game plan, so you're just going to go ahead in the prize race and stay ahead, essentially. Moving down to some of your trickier ones, you're not great into Chien-Pao. They do have Iron Hands and uptrade potential with their Chien-Pao. And sticking on that theme, the sort of most difficult matchups are the Future Box, which is obviously very Iron Hands focused. We don't really have many efficient ways to get around Iron Hands. Obviously, Cinccino can take a knockout on it, but its hit points is low enough that an Ampy can respond on the Cinccino for multiple prize turns. And of course, we're having to put a Lugia into play. We oftentimes need to put Lumineon into play. That gives the future player so many means of uptrading into us. The Lost Box matchup is also proving pretty tricky. That, once again, is using Iron Hands. You can see a common theme here, that it's such an annoying Pokemon for it to get around. Also, many Lost Box builds are using Raikou V, which can at least 2-for-2 trade in the opening stages. So the presence of Lightning is definitely relevant in the metagame right now and is hurting Lugia's overall win rate. The final unfavorable is the Gardevoir matchup. They're also quite a single prize focused archetype, and they do have decent uptrade potential with Drifloon into your V-Star Pokemon, and Screamtail can threaten your Archeops quite early on in the game, really limiting your overall game plan. On to some tech considerations then. The first one would be Noivern EX. I've just said 3 archetypes are painful because of the existence of Iron Hands, and they're all basic attacking decks for the most part, so weaving in this Noivern EX, obviously it's clunky, and this archetype was already fairly inconsistent, but you immediately give yourself a fighting chance into those matchups if you can try and get an early Noivern EX developed, basically ignoring your typical game plan and just going for a Noivern EX instead, and just trying to spam the covert flight attack throughout the entire game, and just hope your opponent doesn't have sufficient answers to get around this Noivern EX. Another option we've seen in previous builds of colourless Lugia has been Mute EX. That genome hacking attack can carve out some interesting multi-prize turns, again looking at the likes of Chien-Pao and Lost Box, where you can be copying Radiant Greninja for some spread attacking plays, and is a Pokemon that can kind of be burst onto the board as well, that can reach some high damage output into the likes of Giratina and Charizard, so that even if a Cinccino isn't on your board, you can still carve out a one-hit KO in these situations. The final card that's interestingly on my considerations is just having copies of Techno Radar in your deck list, even without any future Pokemon in the list. Just having an item card that can be discarding things in addition to your Ultra Balls can be a great way for you to just start bidding off Archeops as and when you see them. There's actually already a tabletop video utilizing Techno Radar in a Lugia list from a few weeks back, and it performed reasonably. I don't think it's an incredible card, but it does give you extra discard synergy from an item, which is something that Lugia is really starving for right now. Ultra Ball is such a premium card to see in those opening few turns. Looking back at the deck list, the kind of most questionable counts I would say is that Mesagoza has made it into a 1 count within my deck list. Sometimes this is just a second copy of Collapsed Stadium, and sometimes this is just going to be a second copy of Snorlax, or even just a third copy of Research, all of which are quite reasonable choices. I'm currently playing Mesagoza because I want to have a second Stadium Bounce for Temple of Sinnoh, which could easily be a tech inclusion for a number of opposing decks, and we have seen Mesagoza in the past work its way into Lugia, so I think it makes a decent amount of sense. The other count I suppose is a little high is Great Ball at the 3, when oftentimes you'll see 2 copies in the standard lists. Again, looking towards a 4th copy of Lugia V-Star, a 4th copy of Minccino, a 2nd copy of Lumineon, a 3rd copy of Boss or Research. These are all also great counts to buffer in the deck list because they're usually just helping you in your general strategy of getting a turn 2 summon. The main reason I'm on the higher count of Great Ball is just that I have extra access to a turn 1 Lugia V, because at the end of the day that's still a vital piece of your early game. Let me know your thoughts on the deck list and enjoy the games. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. So getting into this first game, we have a Minccino start and lots of supporters, no sign of Archeops, which is not ideal. We see a Mew EX from the opponent, so it could be a lot of things. I'm pretty worried about early tempo. If it's like a Lost Box or something, that could be terrible. But we see a Research here, and okay, it's the this is the Bennett Espathra Xatu deck, which actually did well in an online tournament this week. I'll be doing a video on all the online results from week 1 pretty soon as well. The opponent goes for an Enveloping Shadow, but does flip Tails, so I can use items next turn, which is pretty nice. Then we flip Tails on an Aroma, but I prize the Jacq, which is really a shame. That's what I would have gone for turn 1 here. Basically just grab a few evolutions and then just go for a Call for Family play. Would have been my line, and then just have Research for next turn. Instead, I'm going to go for an Iono here. It's a bit questionable because I'm giving my opponent cards, but I wanted to cash in on item cards while I had them, in case the opponent goes for turn 2 Bennett. So that was the reasoning why we're going for Iono here. I can stash a couple Chops in hand, and then we're going to go for a Call for Family, get Another Lugia developed, certainly, and then just a debate whether or not to get another Minccino. I opt not to get another Minccino, just in case I want to access, like, Lumineon from Mesagoza next turn. And if the opponent goes for, like, a Banette attack, I wouldn't have the board space for everything if I had also got Minccino there. The opponent can get Xatu and can start loading up their Flittle, and then will Iono us into a fresh hand, looking a bit better, because I start to see Ultra Ball now, at least. There is the Espathra EX. And we see Temple of Sinnoh, so they are playing text for us. Trying to shut down our special energy, of course. And they're going to retreat into the Espathra and begin that prize race with the Psy Ball attack. So Espathra requires us to have an extra energy in our attacks when we're swinging into them. And currently Double Turbo is also shut down. So it might be pretty tricky for us to actually launch an attack here, unless we get full value from our Summoning Star here. I can at least Ultra Ball, get one Chops, then Ultra Ball again to get that in the discard pile. Not looking like I have a way of getting double Chops binned off from this position, though. We're going to go for an Aroma. Does get Tails. Going to grab Minccino. Then I'm going to summon just the one Chops here, but I'm also going to get the Cinccino back. That's one cool extra part of the Summoning Star. It can get your Cinccinos out as well. Because of the Temple of Sinnoh, I actually can't launch an attack here with my Lugia, so I'm going to start loading up the Cinccino to maybe get a one-hit KO next turn. And possibility to retreat, I'd have to lose 3 of those energy, so I'm just going to hold off for now and try and let this be the sponge for the Espathra. Obviously not wanting to put more energy onto the Lugia right now, because it's powering up their Psy Ball attack. So, taking things a bit slower here, but I know that I have one Echo potential. They have a few multi-prize as well. Yeah, now they have 3 multi-prize Pokemon on this board. So I should be able to catch up quite nicely here. The opponent's going to Ultra Ball. Do they have much draw power going on here? They've used one Xatu ability so far. They might just be prodding us for a chunk. Yeah, see an extra energy onto the Espathra. A quick Xatu onto Banette. PAL panning back some supporter cards seems reasonable. They're going to restart. It's going to be a punch of 180 into the active. I'm going to fire off a Great Ball. We can grab a Cinccino here. I am going to have to pay retreat 3 energy cards, thanks to the Sinnoh. But we're going to load up Cinccino here. It doesn't look like they have easy response outside of another Espathra coming in, but I do have a second Cinccino on the bench. I have Gift Energy on the active as well. So I'm fairly content with my position. So I'm going to also Master Ball out a 3rd Cinccino. And I have 4 energy on my Cinccino. There would be a reduction of 20 were it not for the Temple of Sinnoh. Actually, yeah, so the gift is offline, but they basically just concede as soon as the Minccino army was ready. And yeah, just wanted to show off the Espathra Banette deck. So I thought it was interesting that had done one recently, but Lugia crushes it, which is cool. We get into a much harder matchup by the looks of things. If this is the quad hands, we're possibly in a lot of trouble. Because this is not a great matchup. My main debate now is whether I gift active or bench, or possibly double turbo active or bench. I end up going for gift active, thinking that it's most likely the opponent wants to go for an early swing with their Miraidon. Possibility to pay retreat there is our best option as well, but it just falls so hard to generators hitting, which can be searched out with Arven, so I kind of took the lesser of 2 evils here, as yeah, they did hit 2 from generators, so if I'd made the crazy retreat play, we could have been in a lot of trouble, but we're already in a lot of trouble because there's a 4 energy Iron Hands and the opponent's taking the first prize here with a single prize Pokemon. The Gift Energy does help us out. Oh, it helps us out a lot, actually. We get Lumineon, so I can go Jacq for Ultra Ball away Chops, and also get Cinccino in the hand for the following turn, which might become relevant. My concern is the opponent can take a 3 prize KO next turn with Iron Hands. Is Ampy very much attack? So I'm going to summon the Chops. If I pay retreat out of Lugia, it means they might have to attack a couple more times. But also just kind of rushing their 4-card hand could be the best idea I go for here. Because if they don't get Heavy Baton, if their hand is kind of fumes after their Arven, like we really don't know. They just played one Arven and just have this one guy. If the hand's kind of weak, maybe I can Cinccino rush down this hands. If they have backup, okay. If they have this, we immediately lose because we have no way to remove the Heavy Baton. That Iron Hand's just taken 3 prizes, thank you very much, thanks to the damage buff from the Iron Crown on the bench. And yeah, it means that they have double hands established, and we're literally checkmated from this spot. So no hand disruption matters from this stage, because this hands can KO everything on my board. The only thing it can't KO right now would be a Snorlax, and that isn't doing a huge amount, and they would just require 1 extra damage mod for them to beat us, just 1 more crown. We know they play 3 or 4. So yeah, we are literally checkmated from here. I think I go through some actions, but honestly, there's literally nothing I can do here because they have an amp in the active, and also thanks to the baton that we can't remove, they have an amp set up on the bench essentially as well. So yeah, checkmated by the Iron Hands. Just wanted to show off how bad of a matchup this is. This is really, really a low win rate one. I think the only window of opportunity here was if there wasn't a heavy baton on the active last turn. I could take that KO, force them to start having some more generator hits, and obviously I am Ioning them low quite early on in the game. So that's where your only wiggle room comes in. If they have trouble finding that baton, that would be your only win con, but yeah, it seems like it's a really low percentage as they are just going to get that baton, and we have to scoop it up. So yeah, Lugia does have some very favourables, but also some very unfavourables. It's definitely a pick and choose your moments type deck for sure. Let's get into the next game. We have a Minccino start. The hands are looking really good, actually. We have Jacq and Ultra Ball, and we're up against Control. We're actually up against Icatopi, who I faced a couple times today on the ladder with his Pidgeot control deck. Obviously, Alessandro is one of the most experienced European controlling players, so cool to get some reps in against him just randomly on the ladder. We are able to Ultra Ball grab our Lugia after getting double chops in the discard pile. Ultimately, we've had pretty much the ideal turn 1 there, and we can even call out a second Minccino because Alessandro's deck can attack. He does have Pidgeot, which can swing. So I think it was worth getting a call for family outs just for a backup Minccino here. They actually do have Arven Candy Pidgeots here, and Quick Search is available for them. You'll notice they have a Gothita on their bench as well. That can turn into a Gothitelle, which can mess around with our top decks, which is trying to have a bit more control over the game as well. But that is a hero-caped Pidgeot, so it's got effective 380 hit points. So even with this Summoning Star, Cinccino actually can't one-hit KO. So instead I'm opting to go for Lugia to just try and two-shot this guy. I do like having Minccino around because it can get through even hero-caped Mimikyus, whereas the Archeops can only get through like Bravery Charmed Mimikyus, so it is somewhat important. I'm going to get 1 Gift Energy on the back, and then I'm just going to swing for 200 into this Pidgeot. The controlling matchups are typically really strong for Lugia, to be honest with you. We have a board that is almost all able to attack most of the time, and it's very hard for the opponent to cheese Pokemon into play. There's literally 1 Lumineon that they can cheese out. Even then, we have Collapsed Stadium, which can remove that fish again. And we play naturally 4 Jet Energy in the deck, and this is playing 2 Stadium outs. So we have a lot of ways that we can just keep jetting new Pokemon into the active and keep swinging. And we have Pokemon that get through Mimikyu quite happily. Obviously, Cinccino has silly damage output, so even getting through tankier Heroes-caped Pokemon is no issue. So, and the 220 threshold of Tempest Dive is enough to get through Bravery Charmed Snorlax if it's the all-basic Snorlax deck as well. So, yeah, it's pretty tough out there for Snorlax. It's a pretty low win rate matchup. Alessandro's doing his best, though. He has got Gothitelle out. So Read the Stars selects a card to go on top. So they look at the top 2. They choose one that stays on top of the deck, and they put the other one to the bottom. So they're basically just trying to give me dead draws with their ability here, as they do Nest Ball out a Mimi now. And they're going to Bravery Charm up the Luxray, and looks like they're just going to Instant Charge with Mimi active. Picking up Jet is pretty nice. It means I don't have to pay Retreat on this Lugia, and I can just power up the Chops here because there's no hit point buff on the Mimi. An argument to go for Iono here, and I am going to rip it just before I start taking some prizes, essentially, and we know they have begun to use their Rotom. So we're going to put them down to 5 cards just early on and give ourselves a nice fresh hand, which is a really good hand to sit on, actually. I'm holding 2 Boss, 1 Serena, and a Jet, and Iono. This is like a crazy hand just to sit and chill on, honestly. We are really looking like we're in a good spot here. We do see a Boss on the Minccino, so they are going to try and get through this Pokemon, because it certainly is a threat. But it does mean we should have a free KO here with Lugia coming back into the active and taking out this Pidgeot. And that denies a lot of their engine, so that's pretty cool. Looking at Great Balling Lax to the hand, then we're going to Aroma, that's going to heads. Looks like I'm just thinning cards here. Going to grab Lugia. And we are just going to go for the swing. Almost baiting with the Snorlax here for the opponent to take an Eri play, because an Erika's Invitation play. Because the Snorlax is fine, right? Snorlax is another Pokemon that can swing, so I'm not too worried about it. And I have Jet in hand as well, so just kind of trying to bait an Eri out there. I keep saying Eri, I mean Erika's Invitation. As it happens, they have a Silene, which can put some cards back on top of their deck. See a PAL pad from them. So they're also going to reset their deck. A couple Arvens go on top now. And they're just going to Fang Snipe, try and hit some crucial resources. They have a tanky Luxray right now. Thanks to them knocking out a Minccino and a Cinccino, they can actually tank with Luxray here. I have the option of going Gusting, but I choose to just swing into the Luxray. Because if I Gust now and they come back and Fang Snipe me again and get rid of another Gust card, that's a real issue. So I want them to play a different, or like take a different line here. So by punching the Luxray, I force a penny out of them essentially. And that's exactly what happens. And now it's going to be an instant charge, which gives us 1 more prize, which means that with Serena and Boss in hand, I'm holding on to 2-turn win here with the swing into the Mawile. As it happens, Luxray comes back. We still have so many resources. We have so many Jets. We have 2 Serena and a Boss left in the deck. Well, there's 2. Like, they're in the hand, but also in deck. We have Ball Search outs for Lumineon, which can still close the game on the Rotom here. We will see an Iono, so they're at least doing what they can. They will be able to Fang Snipe a Serena here, but we just had 2 supporters shuffled back into our deck, so this Lumineon will close out the game on the bench Rotom for the last 2 prizes. I actually queued into Alessandra both times, and both games weren't particularly close, to be honest with you. They went a little bit differently both times. But the outcome seemed pretty favoured for us. Doing the thumbs up, not for BM, but because Alessandra's a cool guy. I really like their channel. If you don't watch them, definitely check them out. But yeah, we're able to grab Boss or Serena here to take out that Rotom with the lower hit points. And you should have a pretty decent time into Lax and Pidgeot. Getting into our last one then, we are going to have a quick mulligan, which is good because the hand was looking atrocious. That is still an issue with Lugia. Sometimes you have it all, you get that turn 2 summon and the deck feels insane. Sometimes you don't, so... We get to go first into Arceus, which is great. Our hand's also pretty promising. I have Fish for next turn. So if I can go Fish for Jacq and then Ultra Ball away both chops, I'll have the ideal situation. And we know Arc doesn't disrupt... Oh, sorry, doesn't attack into our Lugia early. So I am just going to attach Pass here and see what they're cooking with. They have an Aroma of their own. And that can grab them a basic, which is pretty solid. I'm going to get an Arc developed. Because, of course, we can threaten their Arceus with a turn 2 Tempest Dive. They actually have a really good setup with a few basics here. Looks like they're debating something. Do they have an attachment? And if so, does that go active or bench here? Oh no, it's a turn 1 Eerie. Okay, that makes our hand substantially worse. Typically Eerie is like a one-of in Arctina, and I don't really expect it to come down turn 1 compared to draw supporters, and obviously they can't V-Star power for the supporter. Man, it's just bad beats that happened to our specific hand, and I wanted to wait for the Fish for next turn to actually do anything. Yeah, that's really sad. That's a very powerful Eerie, unfortunately. Turns out the Jacq was also prized, so I couldn't have even done the line I'd up, which is even more ironic. So I can't get any chops in the bin this turn. Didn't even get into Jet Energy for a Read the Wind play. I am going to have to put a second Lugia down, because there's starting to be a threat of Tina. It's just going to be an attached pass, which is pretty rough, giving them a lot of tempo now. Yeah, that Eerie completely changed. I guess it didn't change the fortunes as much as I thought, actually, because of the Jacq prized. If Jacq wasn't prized, I would have been able to just go double chops, Ultra Ball them away, have the dream set up, even get probably a Minccino, like, underway. But the fact that we didn't is pretty rough. I also possibly could have Master Balled last turn just to get Minccino down. I think I'm basically just looking out for what I can draw into. And also keeping Judge in mind, because Judge is very often a turn 2 play for the Arceus player. As it happens, they go aggressive Boss instead here with their Starbirth. They're also developing Bib Squovert, which is such a powerful engine to have on board. They develop Choice Belt. They put it on an Arceus, which I really don't agree with. They should probably hold that Choice Belt for potential on their Tina, right? Because I have V-Guard, but either way. Yeah, not much help from the top deck. I can just get a second V-Star developed. Now I'll develop a Minccino. And really just cross our fingers from this Iono. Fortunately, we do get at least one Archeops in Ultra Ball. I can do the classic Ultra Ball, whatever we find from the Aroma. Fortunately, it does get head, so I can get just both of them cleanly discarded, rather than having to, like, Ultra Ball get a basic, then Ultra Ball that, as well as, like, the chops I would find. That sort of hoo-ha. But either way, we can finally summon the boys. And we can also get a Minccino developed. Definitely going to get a V-Guard on the active. May as well throw a Mist on to the active. And then I'm also going to start trying to power up a Minccino on the bench a little bit here. Because that's also going to be an important attacker at this stage. The opponent's on those even prizes. So I'm going to start to get that into the mix. We are quite behind, though, tempo-wise. The opponent is able to Ultra Ball. They're going to grab a next V-Star. They have Boss on Tina as well, so they weren't even punished for the bad Choice Belt. They could have got through the active here, but they're still going to be able to impact for 2 prizes, which is rough. They just need one more knockout on V-Star. And I need to knock out this Tina this turn, at the very least. But even if I do that with a 1 prizer, then they're looking for, like, Boss game their end the following turn. And it's hard for me to deny them. I currently don't have Iono in hand, and even if I do, they have Bib Squovert to sort of work towards their final boss. So, yeah, pretty ugly, all things considered. I can go for the Serena to draw a fresh 5. I do get an Iono for next turn, which is at least something, I suppose. But really for my attack map, maybe honestly, was I even meant to go digging with Serena there? Maybe I was meant to just take the active KO and just hold Serena for gusting his damaged arc and win in as few turns as possible. Yeah, but that map doesn't work out either. As long as I have attachment here, I think, yeah, there's attachment. I think I'm in a bad spot from this position now. Because, yeah, it's going to be basically me trying to dodge boss for a turn. And I can't even gust the damaged arc, so they have like 3 turns to boss me, which is so bad. Yeah, maybe holding Serena was the best thing and just saying that Iono doesn't do much because they have Bib Squovert anyway. Possibly my best line was just to hold the Serena last turn, so that I had this guaranteed I could bring up this benched arc, and then I'd have they would have 1 turn to find that boss. But it's not hard when they'll have a 7-card hand, then I'll have Squovert Bib, so they win so often here, right? Either way, we're just going to go for the Iono play and just swing, but it feels fairly likely that we'll lose from this spot. yeah, they immediately just have boss, don't even need to do any of their draw shenanigans, they can just close the game out, and yeah, even though this is a pretty favourable matchup, things can go wrong. Obviously it was the Eerie this time, but sometimes just with worse hands, you're forced into weird positions, and then they can tempo out on you as well. So yeah, that was Lugia. I wanted to show like a fair reflection of the deck, because there are times when it just completely fizzles, and then there are times it's like busted and can't lose. So yeah, I think this was only a handful of games that I had today, and I wanted to show wins and losses, because if I just show like the times when Lugia sets up, it'll feel like the best deck in the world. So let me know your thoughts on the archetype down below, and hope you enjoyed the video. See you tomorrow for another one. Cheers.